and you like to engage, use the chat within Microsoft Teams. And then also, please turn off your video. There's no need to use video during this event. The only folks we're going to be focusing on for video will be the Microsoft team. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and get started. So let me go over the agenda for the event, and then I'll introduce myself and introduce our keynote speaker. But first of all, let me go over the agenda. So the first thing, like I said, that we're going to do is I'm going to give a quick welcome for the event, introducing myself, my organization, the history, of our organization and partnering with Microsoft. And then after that introduction and welcome for myself, I'm going to hand it over to our keynote speaker, who is Adet, who is a principal engineering manager within, Microsoft Azure core, I believe in networking. So Adet will be our keynote speaker. After he finishes giving the keynote, I'll engage a bit with him so that you can get to know him a little bit better. Then I'm going to introduce the team within the Microsoft core group that have basically volunteered their time so graciously to share their experiences so that you can learn more about Microsoft and learn more about Microsoft Azure core. All right, so I'll introduce every one of our panelists and speakers so you guys can get to know them better. Then after I introduce everyone, you have the background and you know who they are and what they do within Microsoft, then we can have a little bit of engagement. So we'll start out with a quick panel discussion where I have prepared some questions on your behalf as the candidates to get to know Microsoft, the Microsoft culture, what it's like to work at Microsoft, also Microsoft Azure core, a little bit more about that organization from a cultural perspective. So we'll have sort of a panel discussion or a fireside chat between HBCU Connect and Microsoft, and then I'm going to open up the floor to Q&A. So you'll be able to ask questions in the chat using the Microsoft Teams, software, and then I'll read off those questions to the Microsoft employees working with Microsoft Azure core to answer some of those questions for you, so that hopefully you guys can get some engagement. You can get some of your questions answered and get excited about the opportunities with Microsoft. So then once we could do that, we'll end the event and talk about next steps. All right, so let me quickly give you sort of the who, what, when, and where on myself. My name is Will Moss. I am the CEO of HBCU Connect. A lot of you guys have already been receiving communications that actually do come directly from me on behalf of my team and also on behalf of Microsoft for this event. We've been working with Microsoft for about 9 years now. I am happy to say that we have a great relationship, a great partnership. Originally, that partnership started out with a partnership with HBCUconnect.com and everything that we do online. But one of the senior leaders within HR came to me and said, "Hey, Will, why don't we do more than just online recruitment and job postings and that kind of thing? Why don't we make sure that our managers and our recruiters actually get to engage and interface with your talent and the folks and the candidates that are within your database so that we can make sure that they get a good look for opportunities from our hiring managers and recruiters." So we came up with the idea of doing physical events specifically for Microsoft and then later on for other companies as well. But this whole engagement around events started out with a conversation with Microsoft. So them being the pioneers with HBCU Connect to host these types of events where the opportunity is, this is not just a branding event. This is not just an info session. There are real opportunities with the Microsoft Azure core team that is going to be speaking today. They have real opportunities, and we want to see people get hired from this event. So the first thing is that we introduce the team and the opportunities, let you guys ask questions, and then we'll give you the next steps for going into an interview loop. So they're already waiting to set up interviews and get some offers out to people that actually attend this event. So you are in a good place for opportunities. Microsoft has been making hires in program management and software engineering, in solution sales, and all different types of organizations within Microsoft have been partnering with us to make a difference and hire more diverse candidates. So that is the opportunity for you. That's a little bit about the history of our relationship. This is one of our most fruitful relationships with regards to people getting hired. So with that, I'd like to welcome all of our attendees and all of our guests and introduce our keynote speaker for this evening's event. So Adet, if you're ready, let me introduce Adet. Adet is actually a principal engineering manager within Microsoft Azure networking. So Adet, if you're ready, you can take over the presentation.
All right, thanks, Will. Hey, Will, can I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
For any of our guests that are just joining us, you can actually turn off your video so that we can focus on our presentation. So thanks.
All right, thanks. Hey, thanks, Will, for giving me this opportunity to speak at this event. I'm here to provide an overview of Azure networking specifically. Azure networking is within Azure Core, with the hope that I can spark the interest of the attendees today so that they'll be able to come join us in Azure Core to build the cloud. So some of the things I'm actually going to talk about today, I'm going to start about myself. I'm going to give an overview of what Azure networking is. It's just a little taster. And then I'm going to talk about an example project that the team works on, and specifically focused on availability and safety, showing how we use software to ensure availability and safety in the cloud. And the reason why that's important specifically, as the cloud gets ever more important in our daily lives, I think it's important for folks to understand how we ensure that we can continue to keep our customers' networks up. And then I'll talk about some of the technologies and languages that we use so that folks can actually get a good understanding of expectations. So my name is Edith Mposong. I'm a principal engineering manager. I'm originally from Cross River State in Nigeria. I have a Bachelor of Science from University of Lagos. I have worked for Microsoft for 14 years in 3 countries. My past roles have been network engineer, principal engineer, senior director of software engineering, and principal engineering manager now at Microsoft. I'm married. I have a wife, 2 teenage children, 1 boy and 1 girl. I live in Washington State. I've lived here since 2007. My wife works as a program manager at Amazon. She doesn't work for AWS. She works for the retail side, so there's no competition there. I love to watch sports. I say watch because that's the operative word. I like football, soccer, and I love Formula 1. So I'll talk a bit about my journey. I started in Microsoft Ireland in 2003. I started as a network engineer in the IT organization where I spent 1.5 years. After about a year there, I thought actually I kind of like knew it all. I thought I had taken on as much of the challenges, and I, was looking for an opportunity for growth. A friend of mine was working for what used to be called the MSN network. I think this were the early days of Microsoft, making a foray into the cloud. And they said, okay, why not come work on the DAC side? So I said, okay, I'll come try it out. She said, there's this cloud thing and the internet is growing. You should come to this side. So I went, I did an interview. I got the job, and that actually made me move to the UK. And in the UK, I actually was responsible for the network growth and expansion for EMEA. And after about, I think close to about 1.5 years, again, I got the same itchy fit. I said to my manager, hey, I would like some more scope and I want to work on bigger things. And he said to me, okay, if you want to work on bigger things, you have to move to Redmond. This is where all the strategy and all the big decisions get made. I said, okay, fine, I think I'll do that. So again, I then packed up my bag and I moved to Redmond in 2007. And then worked in Redmond, worked on, in the early days, continued to work on MSN. worked on supporting Messenger, Windows Live, Hotmail, and then I started working to support something called Bing, which was kind of like the competitor to Google at that time. And this became the foundation for the Azure networking infrastructure that morphed into what we call the data center network today. And in 2015, I left Microsoft, I went to Salesforce, and at Salesforce, I was responsible for building the software for provisioning the compute infrastructure. And 3 years later, I came back to Microsoft to my current role. And here I have like a team of 35 engineers, data scientists, software engineers, and network engineers. Okay, I'll talk a bit about Azure networking. What is Azure networking? There are three components of what we call the intelligent cloud. We have Azure Storage, Azure Compute, and Azure Networking. This kind of form what we're talking about when we say like Azure Core. The Azure Cloud, or the world's computer as we often call it, will literally connect every organization and every person on the planet. If you want to access the cloud, this is it. So we're going to be talking about like the importance of that. And the pandemic in the last year accelerated the enterprise transformation to the cloud. Last year alone, we saw a hockey stick in demand in a lot of our cloud services, not just us, there were other companies that were in the same situation. And this manifested for us specifically with huge bandwidth demands, requiring us to rapidly scale out our wide area network infrastructure and some of our other services. Public clouds today have become very critical to our everyday lives. And today we carry 911 life and death services on our backbone and serve those out of our cloud. And this has led to demands for new standards in agility, security, and availability. And so to deliver this intelligent cloud, as we call it, we have to ensure that we support on-demand, ever-present, and decentralized computing infrastructure for our customers, whether their needs are on premises, in a hybrid, multi-cloud, or at the edge. And Azure networking in particular provides the infrastructure that allows the end user, customers, enterprises to access the cloud. Okay, this is just a picture that actually kind of like talks to the scale. I mean, we have a truly, we'll call it global network. And very recently in the last years, we've actually added Azure Orbital, which is like a ground to satellite communication. And so this picture, you can actually see the number of regions we have across the globe. Within these regions, we have data centers, and then we have edge, where we bring the compute closer to the end user. And we have a number of partners that we connect to, and we have a number of peering connections that allows us to provide that rich connectivity for our consumers. Okay. We are customer obsessed at Azure, right? Our network infrastructure in particular allows us to support that enterprise transformation that I talked about, like customers actually wanting to modernize and move to the cloud. This enables our customers to move their workloads to a centralized compute and storage resources that we host in Azure data centers so that they can actually deliver their services. This allows them connectivity, security, management, and monitoring, right, to be offered as a service, enabling those customers to focus on differentiation and key business scenarios. So we take on the burden of managing their infrastructure for them. And this is just like a diagram that illustrates the various components within Azure networking, right, that enables the user to connect and consume resources hosted in the Azure cloud. As we transition from the edge to the data centers themselves, we gradually transition from the physical connectivity to what we call our software-defined networking stack, which allows these enterprises to create and consume the cloud-based services. Azure provides services that enable enterprises to create and manage secure, private virtual networks hosted in data centers within Azure regions. And in the next slide, I'll kind of like talk a bit more about what this data centers, regions, and connectivity looks like. And so here we actually see some of the services that we provide as part of our software-defined networking stack. We have virtual networks, we have software load balancers, we have software-defined wide area networks, we have DNS and traffic management and firewall capabilities that we offer as a service to our enterprise customers. Okay, so here's an example of what one of those, kind of zooming in, and you can actually see here the front door edge. This connects a region to the internet, and it also connects the enterprise via what we call express routes to the through regional gateways to the data center. And for the regional network gateways connects a number of availability zones, as we call them. And the availability zones actually allow customers to distribute their workloads across multiple availability zones to increase reliability. Within an availability zone, we have a number of data centers that are interconnected via our own fiber that we've actually provisioned. Okay, so this picture I want to show is just an example of the innovation where you can look at Microsoft disrupting an existing industry and developing new technologies and new ways of doing things. Why is this important? Within one of our cloud data centers, we build thousands of network switches, and this switches cost in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Cloud providers had this desire to manage every component, including the switches, the same way they manage the servers. And so we started I'd say a decade ago with this kind of proprietary approach where the vendors did everything. And they provided this monolith here where everything was custom, everything was proprietary, and it didn't allow innovation. And so Microsoft was able to drive that innovation through Sonic, which is our software for open network in the cloud. We built that operating system to decouple the hardware and software and accelerate the software innovation. What this allowed us to do is this concept of moving from this vertical integration to horizontal scaling, where the vendors that had the merchant silicon could focus innovation at this layer. We're very well-defined abstraction interfaces that allow the switch platform vendors to operate at this layer. And it allowed us, Microsoft, to develop the tooling that we could use to manage the components within the data center the same way we manage the server. So everything could become uniform and one programmable approach to management. Okay, and this is an example I want to actually give that actually talks a bit about, okay, taking that data center as a concept, emulating the physical switches within data center in software and running simulations. And why this is important, I will talk through in the next slide, is if you imagine Microsoft Cloud, we actually have to compete against the likes of AWS and GCP. And what actually makes a differentiator is the availability guarantees that we can give to the customer. We talk about 5 nines, so how available the cloud infrastructure is. So we use these software emulators that I've actually shown here to represent the control plane of the actual physical devices within a data center. So we can then run simulations in software to test the impact of a proposed change. In our network, we make thousands of changes every day to improve the network. And we need to ask a few questions. How do we guarantee that the change we are about to make is safe? Can we validate the change in an emulated environment before making the change on the live production system? And by writing software and building this software, we're able to answer some of those questions. So, we often talk about certain things that we can use the cloud to build the cloud. We can use the virtual machines. We can use the vast array of control plane emulators. We can model the topology through graph databases, and we can do static formal verification algorithms to simulate and test those changes. And so the result of this is that we can build this, what I call a highly available network that is correct by construction. Here's just an example of Captain Spock. We've written some software, we've taken input as the intent, we've actually emulated and constructed the output, and Captain Spock is able to actually, validate that the intent is met. If it passes, we can actually push the change down to the production network, and if it fails, then we can actually stop that change before it causes impact to our customers. And so, just to wrap up, I just want to talk about some of the skills that we're looking for, right, to build the software-defined network and to maintain availability at cloud scale. We hire a lot of software engineers, especially those that have like distributed systems knowledge, engineers out of college, hardware engineers, and program managers to actually work on network controllers, virtualization of the network functions. And for things like health and verification, we hire a lot of data scientists, statisticians, mathematicians, software engineers, and again, program managers. And in terms of the languages that we use in this environment, we use Python, we use C#, C, C++, and Go. And so I hope I kind of piqued your interest, and I'm hoping that you will come join us in Azure networking, where you can innovate and create disruptive cloud technologies and help us change the world. Okay.
So can
I'm going to hand it back to you now.
I was going to say, can I actually ask a couple of questions?
Please go ahead.
So for me, I'm very interested, if for you moved around in several different parts of Microsoft, right? So what was it like when you actually had to relocate to the Pacific Northwest? And at that point in time, you were actually overseas, right? Before you. So what was that like for you to relocate?
Okay, it was scary, but I had my wife that says, just do it. I think I had the support, and I think one of the key things that I would say in all the moves that you can actually see is actually, I wanted to just kind of like call out two things. One is, the belief that I was capable of taking more was the first one. But the second and most crucial one was the support I got from Microsoft. Every time I went to talk to my lead or went to talk to a colleague, they would say, yeah, come take on a new challenge. There was always opportunity and there was always support. Like going over to my manager and saying, I want to do more. And my manager saying to me, okay, well, I guess you better move over here. And so I think in all these instances, I think one of the key things that I want to point out is the support that you get in a place like this. They have conceptually what we call a growth mindset. And so, we're always encouraged to like keep growing, keep learning and improving. So it wasn't that terrifying. I just needed my wife to get on board, and that was it.
Excellent. And so for you, managing a team, so it looks like on your specific team, do you have both software engineers and program managers on your team?
So we have a bit of a distinction. Within networking itself, we have two disciplines. We have the engineering and then the program product management, as we want to call it. So my team is purely engineering, but I have a counterpart that does program management. So, as we talk about a lot of these technologies, just think about there's always a complementary organization that does the program or product management.
Excellent. And so on your team, is your entire team software engineers, or do you have different types of engineers on your team?
I have three different types of engineers. I mean, they're primarily software engineers. Then I have data scientists, and I have some network engineers.
Excellent. And if there are any soft skills that you typically look for when you're interviewing candidates for your team, I'm sure they have to have certain technical skills, right, and to get through an interview. But what are some of the soft skills that you look for from candidates to fit sort of the Microsoft culture?
And that's a hard one. I think the key thing I look for is just my favorite interview question is like, what do you want to do, right? Because I actually feel that if people actually have a genuine interest in something, a lot of the things learned and taught, but it's just like the desire, the willingness. Because in this environment, you're going to be challenged technically, you're going to have to learn, and I think if people that have a desire, I think those are the ones that are most successful. So I usually just start with, what do you want to do? And then I kind of like probe and I see if they have a genuine desire to take on a challenge and, have the staying power. Yeah, that's what does it for me.
Excellent. So hard question, but excellent answer. So thank you. So I want to just thank you on behalf of all of our candidates, on behalf of HBCU Connect, for keynoting our event. And I'll ask that you hang around for our panel discussion a little bit later.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So let me go ahead and introduce our next speaker from the team. Our next speaker is Michaela Smith, who's a software engineer too in cloud and artificial intelligence within Azure networking. So Michaela, if you are available.
Hey,
Michaela.
how's it going?
Excellent.
Yeah, so I'm Michaela. A little bit about my background. Before I came to Microsoft, I worked at VMware for a few years on some cloud products, and that was my first job out of school, actually. I joined Microsoft back in September, and I'm on a team called Orbital, which is part of like a space product that Microsoft has recently started working on. Background from Georgia Tech. I did computer engineering. And so I meet a lot of people actually who wonder, like, how did you end up doing software engineering out of computer engineering? Because usually you meet people from computer science directly. It wasn't that hard of a transition. I think there's a lot of like software concepts that I learned on the job, actually, because there's a lot of things you don't cover in computer engineering that computer scientists cover. But it was a pretty straightforward transition. I did a little bit of automation testing before that, but that wasn't more of my mood. And I'm trying to think of some other cool things about myself to throw in there.
Let me help you out. I got some questions for you because
Cool.
you recently started at Microsoft.
Recently,
right?
yeah, like back in September, yeah.
So can you talk to us about what that was like? Because it's one thing if you came into Microsoft before COVID. There's another thing, right? If you had to start at Microsoft
Yes.
post-COVID. So can you talk about a little bit about what it was like through your onboarding experience? So that folks that might start, while we're in COVID, what they might expect. And then, and then we'll talk about a little bit more about like the Atlanta location. That kind of thing.
Yeah, sounds good. So with onboarding, the way I even got connected with Microsoft was I had a recruiter who reached out to me on LinkedIn like months prior for an event that I didn't even go to because I wasn't even like looking at the time. And by the time I came looking for a position, I followed up with that person because, this power of LinkedIn and staying connected. And by then, everything was already shut down. But to be honest, the interviewing process didn't really feel different. It was once I joined. Because interviewing, okay, I didn't have any on-sites, but a technical interview is pretty much the same either way. Like, I'm either on a website writing the code for you or I'm in front of a whiteboard. And so it's a different medium, sure, but that process was pretty straightforward. Joining, however, was completely different. It's so kind of weird, to be honest, to join virtually because I feel like being at Microsoft, there's a lot of culture, especially with this Atlanta office. And a lot of events are happening, everything. And I feel like everyone's doing a good job to make you feel really engaged. But at the same time, you do kind of sometimes feel a little isolated. It feels weird because you're like, oh, but I'm really at home. But I will say, given the circumstances, it's actually been a pretty welcoming experience. Like my team, the way we've been trying to stay connected with each other is they want to be really intentional that even though we don't see each other daily and a lot of us haven't met, we do like a virtual coffee chats on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And so like, it's kind of like water cooler talks, and we get on at like 10 and talk for like 30 minutes to an hour just about random stuff. And then we had a team outing. They've had 2 team outings, but one was before I joined. And whoever felt comfortable, we met up at like Piedmont Park in Atlanta and like actually got to see faces. But thankfully I have a team that's like, they communicate a lot. So I kind of feel like I know them just as well as if I was in the office, even though I'm not.
So were you in Atlanta before you got hired, or did you come from somewhere else?
I was in Atlanta, yeah. So Grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, went to Clemson University. And then when I started deciding I wanted to go get my master's, that's what brought me to Atlanta. So I came to Georgia Tech, and out of Tech, I went straight to VMware. And VMware had just recently acquired the startup. So like they were building that office, and then I come to Microsoft, who's building another office. So I've always been in like a new environment.
So speaking of that office, are people pretty excited about when they are able to go back to work that there's going to be a new like office location there in Atlanta?
Oh, extremely. That's all the hype. Like there's been a lot of discussion about like post-pandemic, like what does work life look like? Do people want to come back to the office? Do they want to do a hybrid model? Do they want to stay working from home? But I find that a lot of the people I know in Atlanta, it's like, yeah, we kind of like this working from home thing, but we really want to check out this new office. Like right. It looks really cool. There's a lot of amenities. So it's definitely pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to the office. I've drove past it a couple times, and I'm like, oh, this looks epic.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about so I coincidentally I have a computer science background. I'm a software engineer. So I put myself in the shoes of the candidates, right? Yeah. So now you're a software engineer within Azure. So what is it like for you, or what has it been like, since you recently started, for you within Azure to be a software engineer? What kind of things are you working on right now?
It's definitely been a lot of ramping up because there's a lot of things, especially on my team, that you imagine going into a new position, new role, maybe working on a product you haven't worked on before, that you're going to have a learning curve and you learn all this stuff. But even more so with my team, because like I said, I work on the orbital product, which is, it has to do with satellites and ground station as a service, providing communication for companies to like be able to send data up to satellites and be able to do Earth observation and stuff like that. Thing is, it's a brand new team. So you come in as a brand new employee, but all your coworkers really only have like 6 months more knowledge than you have. And the project existed for a year. So it's been a lot of learning. Also, a lot of things we use are things that I didn't use outside of Microsoft. So like a lot of products, like, excuse me?
Technologies or?
Yeah, like we talk about Express Route. Like I've never used EV2 before to handle my deployments. And so there's a lot of things that come with learning stuff like that. Or we use this thing called Geneva or Jarvis to do monitoring of services. So these are all these products that come actually out of Microsoft. And so it's kind of cool to learn these internal products. And it carries a lot of what my daily work looks like. But then when it comes to the coding aspect, that hasn't changed, right? So like my previous team, I was doing C#. I'm doing C# now. So that's the familiar area. Okay. And then I had worked on a networking team before. Yep. So even though I didn't like study networking super hard, like that wasn't my specialty, like focus in grad school, I had experience with it. So that kind of made the transition easier coming onto the team that I'm on now. So it's definitely a lot of learning actually, but it's cool because I like the challenge. That's one of the things I said I was looking for. It's like, I always want to learn something new in the space. Yep. So.
Excellent. So let me ask you my favorite question. Cool. And I'm going to try to ask everybody on the panel this question. So there might be some common themes that come up, but so far, so I know you've only been there for, since September, right?
Yeah.
So, but since you've been at Microsoft, what is it that you like most about working for Microsoft, for you specifically?
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Oh man, that's a good question. What do I like the most? I was trying to think of something like culturally, but I will admit that one of my favorite things is a benefit. It's this perks benefit we have actually.
Talk about it.
I love perks. Like it's so nice because like we get so much allotted every year, and I just bought a house, so it's actually been really helpful with like getting new office set. Like I've never had an home office before. And so I can get like ergonomic stuff, and I can buy me a bike and things like that. So it kind of helps with that work-life balance because I know
that those are actual perks that.
Yes, so it's actually called Perks Plus. Okay. And so what we get is like we have an allotment that we have every year that we can spend on things for our own betterment. So like originally you could spend it on things like gym memberships, at-home equipment, basketball hoops, bikes, but you'd also spend it on office furniture. But now they've even like expanded it more so it can be about your wellness in general. So it could be meditation, it could be massages, it could be financial classes. Wow. So that's actually been one of the things I like a lot that I haven't had at any old internships or at my old job.
I love it because that's why I asked the question because, you know, that's the first time I've actually heard that as an answer. But if I was a candidate, that's something that might raise my eyebrows, right? So yes. I hope everybody is listening. But let me thank you, Michaela. I really appreciate you taking the time out to share your experiences, especially as a recent hire, because everybody, you know, that's on here that might interview, that might get hired is going to be looking at similar experiences. So thanks for sharing your experiences. And if you hang on for the panel discussion, we'll talk a little bit more later.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Michaela. So let me go ahead and introduce our next speaker. So I'm going to stop spotlighting Michaela. So our next speaker is actually Sudha Mahajan. So Sudha is a partner PM within Azure Core Networking. So Sudha, if you're ready.
Absolutely, Will. I was looking forward to this moment. Thank you, everyone, and welcome. I hope you're getting the value out of it. I am enjoying it a lot. All the questions that Will is asking, all the questions which are coming in chat. I am partner PM in Azure Core Networking. You know, as Will said, or my slide says, I'm originally from India. I was born there in northern part of India, now live in Sammamish. I came here in 1999 as an immigrant with a lot of dreams in my eyes that, you know, okay, I came here for my master's. Thought 99 was a very different year. If you were in India, almost everyone with a computer science degree was coming to US with the hope that, you know what, the dot-com bubble is there, you're going to make a lot of money, it's a country of dreams, all of that true. 2001, when I graduated, I don't know where the dream disappeared. I mean, maybe some of you have not seen that dot-com burst. That was my first impression of the dream that became a reality, but after much longer time. I was like, where is that dreams that people are talking about? It's a land of opportunities. Forget about like the land of opportunities. I couldn't even land with a single interview, let aside a job. Well, fast forward, things moved on. Like I ended up with my first job, was pretty excited. I started as an engineer like many of you guys, and then moved on to product management. I have been doing product management for about 16 and a half years now, never looked back. Pretty excited about what we do on a day-to-day basis. That's correct. I'm 2 years with Microsoft. Actually, I'm 2.5 years with Microsoft. My past roles, I have been a senior director, yes, at Microsoft. Prior to this, I was a director of product at eBay, leading their advertising business. I was the head of products at Flipkart, which is India's largest e-commerce company. This was my first expat gig. I moved from Silicon Valley along with my family to India, to the country where I was born, but as an expat and on visa. That's another interesting fact. Working in the country where you were born, I don't know how many people have that kind of experience because by the time I was a US citizen. And prior to that, I was the director of product at Yahoo, leading the largest display advertising business for about $1.2 billion. So that's my journey. That's my professional journey. Personally, I'm a mother of 2 kids. I have a full-time job and pretty happy working at Microsoft. I don't know, someone asked a question, Will, in the chat, what is a PM day looks like on a day-to-day basis for people working in Microsoft. I'll tell you, it's super exciting. And the reason I say that is because Microsoft is very, very oriented, or it's a customer-obsessed company. So there's not a day when you're not either interacting with the customer or not reading an email from the customer, and indirectly not working with a salesperson who is engaged with some kind of customer engagement. So one of the most important things of a product management job is that you know the pulse of your customer. So you're interacting with them on try to understand what they're looking forward from your company, from your products. Second thing is you're also interacting very closely with engineering. So there's a huge technical aspect of it. The products that we are building, are we building the products as per to the requirements or as the right with the right design that the customers are asking for. A product manager it's very important for a product manager to be able to speak two languages. And here I do not mean English or any other language. What I mean is there's a very different kind of communication that goes with entering. When you're talking to them, you're practically telling them what to build. But when you're communicating with the customers, you're not telling them what you have built. You're telling them what is there, which is going to resolve their next important problem. So you're telling them the benefits of your products or the benefits of your feature as opposed to what is delivered or what is the feature. So these two aspects of communication is a key to a successful product manager. Like any other person, a part of your job is emails, looking at, ensuring the sprint is going as per what your requirements are, answering any questions that is coming from entry, participating in those kind of conversations, interacting with the customers through sales tools, through sales channels, directly having conversations with some potential customers, leads, biz dev, marketing. This is how a typical product manager's day looks like. Besides, of course, team communication, a lot of it, when you start as a product manager, this is very interesting role where there is a manager in the title, but many of the times a product manager starts as an individual contributor. There is no management responsibility. There's the management of the product, but there's no people management aspect of it. So it's very important that you're able to understand the nitty-gritties of the product end to end. And then you're influencing a lot of the channels through authority and not directly, if that makes sense.
So one thing that kind of popped in my head from a product management standpoint, can you speak to what you see as some of the differences between a person as a product manager versus a person on the team that might be a program manager?
Sure. The one thing which is very interesting in Microsoft is we do not have product manager title. Everybody calls themselves program manager. However, from the industry perspective, there's a huge difference between a product manager and program manager. Now, and both of these are very important jobs, by the way. Product management is expected to interact with the customers, get the right requirements, prioritize those requirements, and ensure that the product is built as per the right requirements. Then associate themselves with the launch process, ensure that how the delivery happened, get the feedback from the customer, reiterate, and then continue to build upon that. Is product manager is also thinking of next big thing. I should be able to see the bigger picture. Here I'm building these blocks, but at the end of the day, how the overall building is going to look like is what a product manager is expected to do. Many times it involves alpha launches, beta launches with the customer, ensuring and course correcting. While a program manager role is very different. A program manager has influence in a very different way, and they may not be associated with just one program. They might be running various different programs. As a program manager, they expected to bring various different teams together, whether it's engineering, product, project management, some kind of sales people together into a single forum, ensure that there's a proper plan built in with the right ETAs available. If anything blocks that plan from the execution, they're the ones who are stepping in, ensuring that gets resolved. So program manager looks at it holistically from a program management perspective. They may not be able to prioritize things for you. They may not be sitting right in front of the customers, but they're running the program. So they're ensuring the completion of the program end to end. That's the major difference between product and program management.
That was excellent. I'm sitting here thinking I need to cut that and make a video clip of just that for future events, because you said some very I think important things from, for example, if I'm a product manager outside of Microsoft, but then maybe I come to work for Microsoft and maybe I'm interviewing for a program management opportunity, but I have product management skills, and I may end up working in a program management role at Microsoft, or interface with customers from that role.
Yeah. That's right. That's the reason this title in Microsoft is a little convoluted.
Okay.
So because it comprises of both product management and program management angles, but you're absolutely right. From an industry standpoint, there's a huge distinction that exists.
I think that was very helpful. I know we have a lot of program management and product management talent tuned into this live event. So that was extremely helpful. So let me ask my favorite question and pose it to you. So I know you've been at Microsoft for 2.5 years now. What is it that you like most about working for Microsoft?
The people and the talent. These are super exciting things for me. And I'll tell you one fact, which I thought was super amusing. I don't know if I'm able to amuse you guys. When I joined Microsoft and I started talking to some of my colleagues, first thing that comes out is when I say, okay, I just joined, how long it has been for you at Microsoft. Trust me, the answer, or probably the minimum possible time frame that I came across in the first 6 months was 10 years. Somebody was 15 years old. Somebody was 17 years old with the company, 18 years, 20 years, 30 years. And I was like, first time when I'll hear these numbers, which is over a decade, I was like, it made me laugh. I was amused because I came from Silicon Valley, and probably every 3 years, people will change the company just because they wanted to know what's the next big thing which is happening, or people were a little bit more proactive about it. Or, there was a mindset. Maybe Silicon Valley culture is very different, where the mindset was, if you worked for a company longer than 5 years, practically you're no use to the industry. So I came from that mindset. Here, everyone is working for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, 30 years. At the end of the day, I started doing some retrospective. Hey, why are people here? They're super talented. They're very intelligent, very knowledgeable. So now coming to, in a way, answering your question, what do I like about Microsoft? One of the analysis that I reached, this is an amazing company. There are not many people who want to leave this company. And the ones who leave the company want to come back to it again because of all the things it has to offer. I think I heard Michaela talking about it. She wanted to start with the culture, though she drifted her answer, but culture is one of the very important things. Under Satya, we have built the culture of Microsoft, which is people first company. One thing he says about is the one thing which is very important is your customers and your employees. You should care about both, and both of them involve people. So Microsoft's attitude towards like people first, hey, are you all right? Are you doing well? Is amazing. Michaela was talking about the benefits. I'll tell you one benefit that this company introduced. I haven't heard any other company doing it. We are offering 5 well-being days in addition to your regular vacation, your sick leaves, every other benefit that Microsoft offers. We are issuing 5 well-being days this year for anyone to take time off for themselves, because COVID has put so much pressure on people working from home, working with other family responsibilities, not able to disconnect. These are your days, take it. A company like that cares so much about the people, how healthy they are, is definitely deserving, very well deserving of an applause. So that's one thing that keeps me going. Second is indeed, there's always a hunger in a person to learn more. But how do we learn more? We learn more through people. There's so many talented people who are expert in their areas, in their domains. And every time you approach a person, we do not believe in any hierarchy. Everyone is available to you to talk to you, because that's the culture of the company. Result of that is, no matter whether you're a beginner, whether you're directly from the college or you're a CVP, you're always learning. Microsoft takes a lot of pride in calling itself, we are not know-it-all culture, we are learn-it-all culture. So there's a room for everyone. As you can see from my background, I didn't come from cloud background, but the company accepted me to open arms, and everybody's like, yeah, nobody knows everything. You're here to learn. We all are learning. Let's learn together. So I thought that was very, very empowering. And that is still very empowering for anyone new joining this company, because this company's culture is, hey, come and join us. We are not like know it all, learn it all, and we'll all learn it together. And then third thing is, Microsoft is not into hero culture. It's all about collaboration. So we are not competitive within ourselves. If we have any competition, that's with the outside world. We're very, very collaborative. So I think that these are like few of the things that I can think of at the top of my mind, which keeps me going and which makes me so much proud of working in this company, and my favorite things as well. But as you speak to more people, I'll tell you, there'll be 1,000 more that will come up. Excellent.
So thank you for taking the time out to share your experiences, to share, your knowledge about, being a PM at Microsoft. So we appreciate you. So if you could stick around for our panel discussion and Q&A, I'd appreciate it. And for the candidates that are watching, make sure to ask questions in the chat. if you have questions, and I'm going to ask the Microsoft team, because sometimes we may not have as much time as we would like in the live Q&A. So I like for you guys to engage using the chat so that folks can take advantage of asking those questions and your experience. So thank you, Sudha. All right. So now I'm going to introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker is Wale Akintayo. So Wale, if you're ready, Wale is a program manager too within Azure Storage.
Hi, how you doing? Well, thanks for the opportunity. Thank everyone for giving me the chance to speak to you and taking time from your individual schedules. Personally, so I'm from Lagos, Nigeria. I was born and raised there, lived there for 16 years. Then I moved over to the States for schooling. I went into the University of Maryland, College Park, for my bachelor's degree in economics and physical sciences. And then I did a master's at Howard University, the U, the Mecca. And then I joined Microsoft in August 2020. Prior to that, I worked as a consultant at an engineering consulting firm. I was a senior project manager there. And my role specifically as a program manager is I'm the data program manager for the Azure Storage team, which is one of our subset groups in the Azure cloud infrastructure. And specifically, I work with other technical product managers in ensuring that whatever data insights or analytics that we need to curate from our different monitoring agents, I'm responsible for building that data infrastructure pipeline, doing a lot of aggregation on that pipeline, and ensuring that people can drive business insights from Azure Storage product itself. The Azure Storage space, we have block blobs, ADLS Gen 2, we have files, and all different products itself. So, I mean, a typical day for me in my role is I typically would have different technical product managers that support the storage products reach out to me and say, hey, Wale, we need to know as we just launched a new storage product, ADLS Gen 2, how is that performing? What are the KPIs for that product itself? How do we measure success? So my role as the data PM would be to work with these individual program managers, or even the product manager that run those services, to see where that data resides in Azure as itself, and then working to build the infrastructure, the data infrastructure, and also the KPIs that the technical product manager needs to run their features and product itself. So one thing that I really enjoy about this role is to really build on my analytical skills. It's just coming from out. I used to manage specifically oil and gas projects, the software development aspects of it, and helping clients build out their infrastructure in the cloud in the oil and gas space. And so what's a funny story is the original team that I was supposed to join was a business program manager team. And somehow, I got hired, but somehow that role was pulled. And the recruiter from Microsoft reached out to me and was like, hey, Wale, I've seen your skill sets. You have strong analytical skills. I think you'd be a good fit for the Azure Storage team. What do you think about that? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll be interested in it. And, the storage team reached out to me. I did the interview, was very successful, and, they took a chance at me. And that's one of the things I specifically like about Microsoft is that regardless of your background, if you have the skill sets and you're curious to learn, there's always an opportunity for you, as different members of Azure have tested to. So, I mean, I've been enjoying my experience so far within my team. It's a closed group. Even though it's a little strange working remotely, I live in Pittsburgh right now, so I'm not my team is based in Redmond. So it's different, the time zones, but I've been able to make it work. My manager specifically is very flexible. He gives me all the time and support I need to onboard into my role itself. And as time has progressed, I've enjoyed the various responsibilities and challenges that has been given to me. One of the key projects I'm working right now is we're trying to improve our incentive systems for our storage partners These are people that work with our customers to onboard our products. So I'm collaborating with a bunch of product managers and technical PMs to build that reward system out, because there are some key data that is needed to drive that process. And so that's something that it's really exciting for me. I've never experienced that before, so I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
So tell us. So I see you went to Howard University. So I know we probably have some more HBCU grads, and I won't make my real HU joke because I went to Hampton. But can you tell us a little bit? Because so you started in, was it August?
Yeah, August 2020. Yes.
So I know there's a lot of program managers that are interested in the opportunities with Microsoft. And if I was a program manager, I'd like to know, what was the interview process like for you? Right. And then where were you working before you transitioned to Microsoft? Well, you already mentioned where you were working.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, if you could talk about what the interview process was like.
My interview process was really focused on, I would say it was more like a case scenario. I was talking to my interviewers how I have used data to make business decisions and driven insights. And I specifically had to give examples of projects I had worked on in my past life as a consultant, and give them about a high level, a detailed level view of how, if it's, building a system, like what are the requirements you guarded to build that system? Once you built that system, how do you define success? How did you test to know that that system was successful? So that was sort of one of the interviews I recall that I had. And what was interesting also was my interview was it was relaxing, I think. I had two interviewers.
And it was,
my current manager. It was virtual, yes, it was. So that was very new to me. I hadn't done a virtual interview with two people on the screen asking you questions at the same time. But one thing that I would say is, as a potential interviewee, it's important to ensure that you're a good fit for that team as well. And some of the interview questions was also just understanding how I would fit into the Azure storage team and what motivates me and drives me personally, because Microsoft gives you that opportunity to really express yourself. And so you need to be personally driven to know what you want. So that was something that was highlighted in my interviewing process as well, to see in the past, how have I stayed motivated in my role? Because as previously mentioned, a lot of the people that have worked in Microsoft, and that's something I noticed, are like, they've been there for like 13, 15, 20 years. So, I mean, once you become very comfortable in whatever PM or software engineering role you're working in, you need to challenge yourself to say, okay, I want to do something differently. And of course, you have the managers that would support you to take that leap. And that was something that was very appealing to me at that stage of my personal career.
Excellent. So let me ask my favorite question. What is it that you like most so far? I know you've been there since August, right? But there's got to be something that you like most so far about working for Microsoft.
Oh, that's a very good one. So I like, so right now our team is doing the no meetings Friday, every first and third Friday of the month, no meetings. That's really, really excellent. Coming from a consulting culture, it's amazing, because I mean, in consulting, you spend most of your time responding to a lot of emails you've accumulated from Monday to Friday. So, and then you're having meetings, giving clients, an update on what's going on with the project. But I really enjoy the fact that, at least in my team, it's Scott Guthrie's team, they've really emphasized the personal life, having a healthy balance between work and your personal life. So for me, I've enjoyed the fact that on Fridays, I don't really have to plug into meetings or schedule meetings, and I can focus on my professional development and also other things that are outside of work as well. So that's really, really appealing to me. There's also the well-being days. That's amazing. That was a good gift. And then one other thing that I thought was really nice that we got as the Azure Core team was over the Christmas break, they gave us I think it was like $200 gift cards just as a thank you for the sacrifices we made during the COVID period. I mean, because it's been challenging for individuals, families being able to balance work and, you know, all their personal commitments as well. So that was something that was very, very appealing to me. And I like the fact that I have friends that work in other, you know, tech companies, and they seem stressed. For me, I'm very relaxed in my role, and that's just because within Microsoft, people are understanding and they put an emphasis on ensuring that employees, their mental well-being is, you know, it's really taken care of. 2 weeks ago in my team, we did like a 1.5 hour session where people were just talking about their mental wellness journey, and people were coming out and sharing their different stories of how they had to cope personally working from home and also balancing family life. And that was just amazing to see your boss tell you, you know, these are his or her vulnerabilities. So that was a good thing for me personally.
And that's huge. So last question before I let you go, and that is around, so you're currently in Pittsburgh, so you're working remote.
Yes.
You onboarded and are working remote?
Yes.
And then do you know, post-COVID, do you eventually have plans to move to the Seattle area?
So here's that's a very good question. Because of my team dynamic and how things have been going pretty well, settling in my team, I've actually been offered the opportunity to move down to Atlanta. So there's been discussions between my manager and I about, you know, an Atlanta opportunity and setting up a storage PM team specifically data focused in the Atlanta region. So I have family down in Atlanta, so I'm seriously considering that. So, but see, that's another good thing. That's the flexibility of Microsoft. Is I was supposed to originally join the Redmond team, and you know, having people that you work with that are sensitive and understand that things change, and they're flexible enough to give you different options. I think that's a very great asset that the org offers generally.
Excellent. So
yes,
I appreciate you sharing your experiences.
Thank you so much.
And you know, I'm sorry, you know, that I didn't get to do my Hampton joke, but
no, it's fine.
It's a great school. So no, thank you, and just hang around for our panel discussion.
Sure.
Make sure if folks have questions for Wale to ask questions in the chat, and but I'm going to keep it moving to our next speaker. So thanks, Wale.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so our next speaker, let me stop the spotlight right here. Okay, our next speaker is Rukmani Gopalan. So Rukmani, if you're ready, Rukmani is actually a principal PM manager. So welcome, Rukmani. I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry, okay, can folks hear me now?
Yep, you're good. Yep.
Okay. Hello, Will. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I must say, just listening to all of the amazing folks who spoke before, I'm just transported back to 2004 when I was basically attending one of the Microsoft panels at Arizona State University and thinking about applying to Microsoft. So I am one of those people that Wale and Sudha talked about. I joined Microsoft right after college in 2004, and I stayed there forever. So I'm one of those people where if I had met them and they would have asked, how long have you been? I would have said, yeah, 10 years. And right around my 10-year anniversary, I felt like I need to go get a different set of experiences. So I went and started working at the diametrically opposite companies to Microsoft, which are very, very small shoestring startups where we did everything from like buy couches and, you know, hire people and bootstrap products. So after a really enriching, what I would like to call as a tour of duty, I came back to Microsoft, and right now I work as a principal PM manager on the Azure storage team within Azure Core. I am originally from Chennai, India. Chennai is in the south of India, and I came to US as a way to get my master's. And, you know, that time I should confess that I was not one of those with a strong ambition and other things. It was more of, hey, this is what everybody did. So go and get your master's degree. And then you get to go work at a great company. And I think just as luck would have it, right after my master's degree, I got the opportunity to work at Microsoft, and it's just been an amazing ride ever since. I live in Redmond, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle area, and Redmond is also the headquarters of Microsoft. And I have 2 children. I have a 10-year-old boy, and I have a 12-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl. And when we are not working, we love to go explore the Pacific Northwest, which is a great area. So in the Azure storage team, I work on the big data analytics storage, which is Azure Data Lake storage, which is what Wally was talking about. In fact, Wally is helping us build all these amazing dashboards right now to help us measure how we're doing as a business. And one of the things, as everybody said, to echo, love being a product manager, love working at Microsoft, and I do a strong +1 to what everybody was saying. A few key things I wanted to call out on top of what everybody else have already addressed is we're not kidding when we say that we really embrace the growth mindset and strong customer empathy, and people are the driving force behind our organization. I think what folks would observe is right from the interviewing process, the spirit shows, right? So when I was interviewing, when I applied to interview to Microsoft as a college hire, one of the things you start seeing is even you get a call from the recruiter, right? First saying, here, I'm going to prep you for your interview now. I mean, that was one of the most awesome moments, right? So it was less about I'm going to test you, you come and show me what you know, and more of let me prep you and give you strategies to be successful in your interview at Microsoft. And when you join, I got a chance to work with people who have written books that I read just the year before, books on C# and books on Windows. I wrote term papers based on what they wrote, and I get to meet them, and they are just full of humility, right? Whether it is Jeffrey Richter or at that time James Whittaker, they all would never look down on somebody who just joined or anything, but they were more like, how can I help you? And tell me about what you're working on and what can I learn from you? Because and one of the things I wanted to call out is in my very first year at Microsoft, I had to do a VP presentation, and I did not sleep for 2 days, right? Because I was like, oh my God, how am I going to tell my VP about what I'm doing? And the very next day, I think even without me going and complaining or talking about my fears, my manager came and told me, you know what, Rukmani, you work on this day in and day out. You are thinking about this problem day in and day out. And think of this as an opportunity where your VP wants to learn about what you're doing, and you get a chance to show what you are. And never forget for a minute that you are an expert and you are the person who is working most on this problem. And when I did the VP presentation, that very same spirit extended throughout my management chain all the way to the VP. And many things have changed in Microsoft. As Sudha talked about, we have evolved a lot. When I joined Microsoft, I joined as a program manager, which was true to the concept of what she talked about as a program manager, right? Where you work with small feature crews, you write very detailed functional specs on how the feature should work, and you are focused a lot on delivering the feature. And over time, Microsoft has evolved into this role into a product management capability, working a lot with customers, the business, and engineering in deciding what to build and how to go market your feature, help market your features. One thing remains constant is this amazing spirit of a people-oriented business. And that is one thing that I'm so thankful is a place where I started my career in.
Excellent, excellent. So can you talk about sort of are you a manager of PMs?
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about your team, what your team looks like how many people work on your team, and are they product focused? Are they, internal PM, program management focused? Can you talk a little bit about your team?
Absolutely. So I manage a team of 4 PMs right now, and I have a business charter and a goal to also foster a diverse and inclusive culture on my team as a manager, right? So those are my core responsibilities. From a business area of ownership perspective, I own the strategy of helping our customers migrate from one of the analytics storage offerings we had, Azure Lake Storage Gen 1, over to our offering called Azure Lake Storage Gen 2. So we have thousands of customers, marquee customers using Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 1. So I think about the migration strategy of how to help think about the migration with funding, with resources, with automated tools, and then how do we report and measure the progress of how their experiences have been after they migrate, so that as customers, they are having a fantastic experience on the newer platform. And we also own running the big data platform for Microsoft internal customers. We call it Cosmos. So I also own taking the Cosmos storage portion of it and helping migrate that into the newer platform offering. So Cosmos storage, think of it as this is the storage platform that powers pretty much all of the Microsoft business, including Azure, Windows, Office, Bing. We have exabytes of data that's stored in our platform running business critical operations. So this would be a multi-year effort where we are taking this platform and helping our customers converge with the Gen 2, Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 offering. So those are the areas that I work on. So my team is largely focused on these two efforts, right? So we have some PMs working on the Gen 1 to Gen 2 migration efforts, and others are focused more on the big data, internal Microsoft Big Data Platform, Cosmos storage convergence to the Gen 2 effort. And I own the business KPI of, what kind of, and that's the best part about being a product manager, right? Like, so, I don't know if it's the best part, as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. So I get to define what success looks like, right? So I get to say, what does this convergence look like? How do I know this year how much progress I have made towards the migration? What is my plans for the next year? What do I need to be successful? Do I need more PM help? Do I need engineering help? And I work with my engineering counterpart who builds a set of tooling and features. And then we get to collaborate on asking, how do we go get to manage our people? How do we go ask for money or resources? What kind of partnerships we need to make with other companies? Like we have a partnership with companies who are our tooling partners, we have partnerships with system integrators who are these consulting companies who do projects of helping migrate. So we get to do the whole shebang, right? Like, so I'm given, like, think of it as a one-line problem statement, and I get to go, the world is my oyster to go help expand that. And the best part is when you join as a PM at Microsoft in your first year, you get that same one-line problem and the world is your oyster in a very coaching, mentoring kind of an environment where you get to you get to decide how to solve a problem and how to approach the problem solving.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask my favorite question, but I'm also going to keep an eye on time. So quick thing for the candidates, looks like we're not going to have a whole lot of time for Q&A. So please ask your questions in the chat, and I'm going to ask the Microsoft team members to keep an eye on the chat to answer any questions that fall within your area. So Rukmani, your favorite thing about working for Microsoft?
I would have to side with everybody else, Will. I love the people here in terms of, I'm treated as a person, right? Whether it is employee benefits, how HR and everybody else talked about benefits, and I'm what they call a boomerang, right? So I worked at Microsoft for 11 years. I went to work at different companies for 3 more years, and then I came back to Microsoft. My service clock did not start as day one, right? So when I came back to Microsoft, it was whatever 11 years I had worked before my break got accrued to my seniority. So right now I'm like 13 years or 14 years at Microsoft. And all that shows in terms of how my vacation works and benefits work. So right from benefits and people and just the leaders you work with, I think the people are amazing. The next closest thing I want to say is the kind of problems we solve, right? So right now I'm pretty sure my family is very tired of me saying this. Like every time I see an ad, right? Like if every time I see a FedEx truck, for example, I'm like, did you know that they're running on Azure Data Lake Store Gen 2 and we're having all these sensors for COVID vaccines? Did you know that we're doing this? And then my niece did an internship with a pharmaceutical company. And I'm like, did you know that they're Azure customers? Like the kind of customer impact we have across, every industry, you name it, and the kind of impact we're able to drive with our technical solutions. That's just amazing, right? Like I'm really not sure how many other companies would have that kind of an opportunity to drive an impact.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you for sharing your experience within Microsoft and also within program management as well. I'm sure a lot of people appreciate that. So like I said, for everyone that's tuned in, make sure if you have questions to ask the questions in the chat. And like I said, I'm going to ask the Microsoft team members that are here to answer those questions that are relevant to what you do as well, because we're not going to have a whole lot of time for the Q&A. But with that, allow me to introduce our next speaker. So thanks, Rukmani.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me introduce our next speaker, who is Bila Akpan. So Bila, if you're ready. Bila is a principal software engineering manager. And Bila, you're working out of the Atlanta location now? I think you're on mute. There you go.
There I go. Yes, I'm out of Atlanta.
Welcome. So I'll hand the microphone to you virtually. But like I said, Bila is a principal software engineering manager. If you can kind of share your path to Microsoft.
Okay, so I'll keep it short so we can get some questions in. But thanks for everyone for joining, taking your time out just to hear about Microsoft and about this company and the opportunities. I definitely appreciate that, and for all the other people who spoke before me. They said so much, and I agree with everything they said. So let me see, my journey to Microsoft, or just even to this industry. So I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I went to Grambling State University, and I wouldn't say I was the best student. I actually didn't graduate. I actually went home and I started a family. And then my wife, encouraged me to go back and to go deeper into my passion for engineering and software. And so then I started off as an engineer in Michigan, eventually made my way to Atlanta, where I've worked for a number of large companies there. And my whole career I built off of Microsoft technologies. And so once I heard that they were building an office and hiring in Atlanta, I had to take that opportunity. And actually I was the 5th or 6th person to actually hire in the Atlanta office here. So it's been a journey, just seeing it grow from 5 to over hundreds now, and I think there's commitments to have 1,200 people hired in the Atlanta office in not too long. So at Microsoft, I'm part of everyone we spoke to is part of the Azure core team. I'm part of Azure core, but inside of that, I think you heard networking, storage, and I'm here to represent the compute side of it. And so when we talk about compute, that's kind of like the kernel of Azure, right? It's where all of the processing and all of the compute is built off of. And the team I'm working on, so we're responsible for the data, the control plane and the management planes for that compute space there. And specifically, I manage a team of 12 people. And our focus is primarily on the customer experience that customer have in Azure. Like I know people said it before, but we're definitely customer obsessed. It's always about making sure the customer has the best experience and that we're doing everything with the customer in mind. So our focus is on making sure that their experience in Azure is the best, that we are building products and their experiences with VM is top notch. So our focus is on things of when issues come around in Azure. If you have a VM, a virtual machine, and you're hosted in Azure, and if there's a problem, we create software that runs diagnostics and detects if there are problems. We try to provide diagnostics so that you're able to troubleshoot and resolve your own issues. We're able to try to build tools that you can use in the portal that use machine learning, that ask you about, that detects if you have a problem, then asks you a series of questions. And then based on those questions, we try to provide you the proper troubleshooting guides so that you're able to have the best experience. We're also responsible for all of the SDKs that all of our customers use. So the engineers or the people on the team who use the .NET, the Azure.NET SDKs or PowerShell, we write all of those for the compute side of things. Yeah, and the one part about being in this customer experience, you have a lot of teams on here that they own the VM and they own maybe certain products. But because for my particular team being focused on the experience, and one thing that I love about this position, that is always something new, right? With the scale of Azure, there's always a problem. There's always a new problem a customer is having, and so there's always a different area of focus that we can focus in on. And there's a big emphasis on understanding the customer journey, understanding their experiences, and coming up with solutions, coming up things that would give them impact, that would make Azure stand out as the top-notch computing environment out there between all of our competitors, and building solutions that really make an impact for them. So yeah, that's what we do.
So can you talk a little bit about your team? What does your team look like? Do you have a team of software engineers?
Yeah, I have a team of 12 software engineers, and yeah, I can tell you what they look like over Teams because I've only met them over Teams. Yeah, all of them has actually started since COVID.
Wow.
So that it's, from a manager's perspective, it's been different. I've managed other teams before, and you get this type of interaction with your members, but we're having to create that here, and it's different. And I think it's just a testament to the Microsoft culture, emphasizing that from our leadership always, talking about, making sure that we are setting things aside and we're setting up programs to interact with our members, and having virtual events and trying to keep them engaged and keep intact, and care about, what's going on in their life under these special circumstances. So yes, it's a group of 12 engineers. They're all based out of here in Atlanta, but work really closely with a counterpart team in Redmond. And also we have an office in India, which we call the IDC, where we work closely with.
Excellent, excellent. So what I want to do right now, so Bila's already on video, so if you just want to keep your video on, I'm going to ask the rest of the Microsoft team to turn their video on. And we're going to do something a little bit different because we only got about 5 minutes left. And then I'm going to talk about next steps. So for all of the Microsoft folks, if you could turn your video on, I'm going to ask each of you, and we can start with Bila. So I'm going to turn the spotlighting off. So for the Microsoft folks, if you're a candidate, you can turn your video off so that we can focus on the Microsoft team. All right, so I'm going to ask a simple question. And like I said, we got 5 minutes, so if everybody can keep it brief. I'll start with Bila, and I'm going to end with Edit. Cool? So the question is, if you could give a quick piece of advice to the candidates that are on, like knowing that we have a diverse set of candidates that are in software engineering and program management and product management, what would your advice be for these candidates? So Bila, if you'd like to start.
My advice is to always keep learning, and always keep an open mindset, and listen. I think if you especially in this industry, always be curious, always question, and always learn, and always seek out new knowledge, and have fun, right? To me, programming is like a hobby. I really love it. So I think just keeping that spirit, I think you'll go far with just that inquisitiveness.
Thanks, Bila. So I'll go ahead and I'll pick everybody kind of round robin. So Suda, any words of advice for candidates that like to land a career with Microsoft?
I will say +1 to what Bila said. Be curious, ask right questions, eager to learn, demonstrate that you have the ability, and demonstrate you have the right attitude and aptitude. That is what we are looking for, not necessarily a domain knowledge. We know that you come from a college. I'm not expecting anything, but the right attitude and aptitude should be reflected in an interview and at the job.
Thanks, Sudha. Wale, what would your words of recommendation be for candidates interested in getting into at Microsoft?
I will encourage them to be themselves, to be confident in their abilities, and to be patient as well. I know sometimes with recruiting, you can feel frustrated you're not hearing back from that recruiter, or things could be slow, especially with COVID. But just know that as long as you have the right skill sets and you're yourself and you're confident in your abilities, we at Microsoft can see that, and we reward that. We also reward people that are curious and are interested in using data to drive business decisions, and more importantly, that are people and customer focused. That would be my advice to a candidate.
Thanks. And Michaela, what would be your words of advice for candidates?
I'd echo a lot of the earlier sentiment about this growth mindset, being curious, definitely making sure that you're always looking for something new to learn, always trying to be taking in new information and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that would be the majority of what I would say. I think even in the interviewing process, like when you are like that and you can communicate that really well, and I can see the passion in it, I think that'll take you a long way.
Thank you. Rukmani.
Yeah, +1 to what everybody else said. Especially, I'll target it to the interviewing process, since that's probably relevant to most folks here. Three important things to remember is the questions that are asked to you are probably intentionally vague for a reason, because the interview process is designed for us to understand how you think about a problem, not whether you know the right answer. So ask a lot of clarifying questions before you jump into the design. The second thing I will say is think aloud. So I know if it was an in-person setup, then you can use a whiteboard and talk through a problem. But if not, in the remote circumstances, think aloud on your approach to solving a problem. You don't wait to have a perfect solution. It's generally how you try to break it down, first get to a rough solution, then optimize it. So that thinking aloud process is very important. Last but not the least, the interview process is not just a chance for us to get to know you, but also a chance for you to get to know us. So don't hesitate to ask any number of questions about how the interviewer's day is, get their perspectives on Microsoft. So far, you've listened to 5 people. There'll be use the interview as an opportunity also to learn more about the immediate team you'll be working in, and try to think about what we talked about as well.
Thank you. And Edet, I'm going to give you the last word as our keynote. So any advice you have for candidates? You're on mute right now. There you go.
Okay, cool. I just want to thank everyone that came today for attending today's HBCU event. I'm thankful for being given the opportunity to actually deliver the keynote. I think that, and I agree with all my colleagues. I just want to add 2 things, and I'll add a few more to that. The key things I would say is, find out what you're passionate about. We all have imposter syndrome, and we tend to self-doubt. And so if you find out what you're passionate about, what you believe in, develop, a sense of conviction around it, and your passion will show through. Most times people come to interviews, and they show that passion, they show that hunger and drive, and that's actually what gets them over the fence. I've been at Microsoft for 14 years, and I would say in comparison with other companies, it's the technical and personal growth along with career advancement that's kind of like kept me here for 14 years. I value our commitment to diversity and inclusion, the opportunity for me to be my authentic self, meaning that my voice is heard. I'm allowed to feel both valued. I can, as I think Sudha said it well, you can actually talk to any level in the organization and people actually humble. I think this is a truly great place to develop and grow your career. Please come join us, and you find the possibilities are endless. Thank you.
Excellent. So on that note, let's talk about next steps quickly. But first, let me thank all of our panelists and, to our keynote. Thank you for taking the time out to share your experiences with our candidates. On behalf of our candidates, we really appreciate you and know how busy folks are. So this means a lot to us. So thanks to our Microsoft panelists, and also thank you to all of our event attendees. And so if you are interested in interviewing for opportunities within Microsoft Azure Core, please keep an eye on your email because we actually have an interview interest form, which will go to Jesse Sparks, who's also on the call. And basically, you'll take the link from the email, click on the link, fill out the interview interest form if you'd like to interview. It'll talk about a little bit of your experience, as well in program management, product management, and or software engineering. That form will then go to Jesse and his team. And then from that, they will actually reach out to candidates for an initial phone screen to talk about your interests and about a possible fit. And then if there's a fit, they will align you with interviews. So Jesse, in case you want to add anything else to those instructions.
No, that pretty much explains it. Definitely fill out the interest form. Folks will be reaching out over the next couple of weeks for interviews. So if you definitely want to be included, be sure to fill out the interest form.
So make sure to keep an eye on your email. I'll be emailing everyone that we should already have your resume. But I'll give you a word of advice to update your LinkedIn profile, because one of the questions on that form is a link to your LinkedIn profile. So make sure to update your LinkedIn profile, fill out the interview interest form. If you don't see the email by, within 24 hours, check your spam folder. But I want to just thank everybody. You're in good hands, as you can see, with Microsoft. I'd like to thank all of the Microsoft presenters again. And good luck to those of you that decide to take the journey to potentially interview and land a job at Microsoft. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you. Right?
Thanks, Will.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Will.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.